All right, earlier we were discussing with an investigative journalist this very worrying report from Viewfinder, basically saying that police management often protect their own, protect the people below them who are implicated in serious transgressions, who are even investigated by the police watchdog IPID. To discuss, we're joined by the head of investigations at IPID, Matthew Sesoko. Mr. Sesoko, welcome to the show. Were you able to hear what Daniel Kotze said earlier or read the Viewfinder investigation, and can you respond before we get into the details?
I didn't catch all the inputs made by Daniel in the show. However, I did read the article he wrote about our investigations and the recommendations we make to the SAPS. And the truth of the matter is there is truth in his reporting, in the sense that there are challenges with regard to implementation of our recommendations by SAPS. We do hold regular meetings with the SAPS with a view to unlock these issues to ensure that all our recommendations are implemented. However, there is still a challenge in terms of getting all our recommendations implemented. Some of the issues that come up is that SAPS, in some instances, they don't even implement, they decide not to even initiate any disciplinary action. And in some instances, they indicate to us that they had issues with our recommendations. We have had meetings with them to try and iron out these issues. For instance, we proposed to them that where they had issues with our recommendations, they must consult with us so that we have a common ground on those recommendations. The IPID Act, Section 30 thereof, it's very prescriptive in terms of the fact that when we make recommendations against members of the SAPS, SAPS must initiate disciplinary action against their members where we make negative recommendations against them.
In the one case relating to that man, over 50, brutally beaten, he was arrested for being drunk and later died of his injuries. And the investigation finds that there was a disciplinary action, but most of the officers were let off and not many of the details became available. And they're still on the beat. And that police station, notorious. So how often does that happen, where you batted back to the police station and they just protect their own? Because according to the reporter, it's rife.
Well, the problem is that after we've made the recommendations, the SAPS now has the responsibility to implement those recommendations. Now you have members of the SAPS who are appointed as initiators of the disciplinary proceedings, and as well as the disciplinary tribunals in those disciplinary hearings. What really happens in those disciplinary hearings, we don't get involved. We just get outcomes that are referred to us. In fact, in some of our discussions in our IPID Amendment Act, there were also proposals to the effect that in the disciplinary proceedings where we have made recommendations, IPID members should actually be represented in those disciplinary proceedings so that we ensure that whatever happens there, it's in line with what we have recommended. So it does happen. I mean, in some instances, some of the sanctions that are given to members for serious misconduct, you find that there are sanctions that are actually not appropriate to the offense that a member is being charged with. To an extent that sometimes we have to write to the police to say we're not happy with these sanctions, and in some instances the police would have to apply for a review of those disciplinary sanctions. So we have those kind of situations.
Can you never go over the heads of the managers of these police officers? I mean, say we have a George Floyd situation in South Africa. Say you believe that an officer is guilty of cold-blooded murder. Can you not say he must go and enforce that somehow?
Unfortunately, in terms of legislation, we don't have the powers to do so. The issue of discipline is still a management function of the SAPS. It's not that of the IPID. IPID responsibility is to investigate the misconduct as well as the crime. We make recommendations to the SAPS. We make referrals to the NPA for criminal prosecution. Like specifically in this matter also, a referral was also made for criminal prosecution, and we've recommended that these members must be charged for murder. We're still waiting for the decision of the NPA in this regard.
Mr. Sesoko, finally, I mean, is this frustrating? Like the reporter says, it undermines your very investigations. It's just battered back. Police protect their own. What's the point of it all? And what can be done about it?
Well, we're hoping that, and the minister had released a report by the panel that was appointed after the Americana incident. And some of the recommendations that were made by the panel was that there must be a dedicated unit that looks at the issues of discipline, so that you don't have members who have maybe their supervisees and so forth dealing with their own discipline. And we're thinking that maybe when you have dedicated people who are not part of the normal establishment of the police, who deal specifically with the discipline matters within the police, and maybe that would improve the situation.
All right. Well, we hope for some change. Thank you very much, IPID Head of Investigations, Matthew Sesoko.